Hello everyone and welcome on a new College of Academy Lab Guide. I'm Corentin Guinez, driver for Mercy, and today we are on the Nurburgring for the second week of the Sports Car Challenge by Falcon Tire. We're using the AMG GT4. As usual, at first we're gonna go with the hot lap and then we will dive into the details going into the second week. So yep, let's get started. Alright, so we go for the hot lap around the Nurburgring. So we are right now crossing the start finish line and we are heading into the last corner. Gonna brake around the 150 on the left hand side, down the gears, deep on the brakes. Gonna go down to first, trying to use as much track as you can on the inside, and then you try to have a good traction. Go to the right, dive into turn 3, staying with second, trying to have a sort of tight exit to not go too wide on the way out. Now we are entering the Mercedes arena, down to second, trying to use as much track as you can, tight exit, and then you are diving into this corner. Very important to get a good exit out of that one. Now we are entering the proper GP layout, braking at the end of the exit road on the right side, trying to bring the car into the corner. Now on the brakes at the beginning of the curve on the right, with second gear, opening the steering on the exit, and now using a lot of track, all of the track on the exit. Now we are going into the hairpin, gonna brake on the left. Now bringing the car into the first apex, going a bit wider. Second gear, taking the late apex, the second apex, using all of the track. Now into the famous S's, using the curb on the right, a bit of lift in the middle of the track, using all of the curbs, making sure I'm not getting too much the right hand side to not get a slowdown. Now we're gonna brake before the 100, on the brakes, down to third, I bring the car on the curb, making sure I get a sort of tight exit, bringing the car to the left. Once the car is on the left, a bit of braking, bringing the car to the inside, using the curb on the exit, and now we have a bit of rest on this straight line, even if you have that right one. Now we are entering the chicane, gonna brake near the 50 on the brakes, staying with fourth gear, using the curbs, trying to make sure I'm cutting as much as I can the curbs without taking the off track, and now diving into the last corner, making sure I carry a lot of speed on the entry without going too wide mid corner, focusing on the exit, getting a good traction, and now we are crossing the line for the lap around the Nurburgring. Alright, so we go for the guide this time. So we are going to go into a bit more details, obviously, this time by. So, as I said during the hot lap, the braking reference for the turn 1 is just around the 150. Now with the fact that the GT4 have a bit more top speed, you have to make sure you longer a bit the brake distance, or at least you use an earlier reference compared to what we had before. Back in the days, it would have been the exit road on the left, which would be maybe the 125. Now we need to use the 150, so a bit earlier than what we were used to do. So quite deep on the brakes, as you can imagine, just around 80%. And the idea there is to make sure we are bringing the car as much as you can on the left. The curb is flat, so it's not going to um, disturb really much the balance, and obviously making sure we're not going too deep into the ABS to not cook the front tires. We know that it's the meta with the GT4 to not push too much the cars now. It was a bit different 2 seasons ago, but now obviously you need to be a bit more careful about the way you are driving the car. You cannot push as much as what we were doing before. So now deep on the brakes, just about 80%. And as you can see, the more I'm going into the corner, now I'm going to release the brakes to get the rotation. I'm gonna go down to first, and as you can see, I'm using as much track as I can on the inside, obviously making sure I'm not going through the border, but as soon as you stay next to it, it's all okay. So that's pretty much the thing. As you can see, the car is going a bit straight after that. So obviously the idea there is to make sure you cut, but not too much, because the more you're going to cut, the more the car is going to go back like sort of straight after that. So it's quite okay, I would say, if you don't cut it too much, because I don't think it's worse, especially on the exit. But both line works at the end of the day. So now that we are into the apex, and once we will be off the curb, I'm just gonna go on throttle, and as you can see, I just need to wait until the steering is quite open until I can go on power. Now I need to bring the car to the right, and as soon as I brought the car to the right, then I can dive to the left for this left-hander. So bit of braking on the way in, but you're not arriving with a lot of speed, so it doesn't require a big amount of braking. So just a bit of braking at the beginning of the corner to just put the car into the right place and right momentum, I would say. And then yeah, you just make sure you bring the car to the apex. You take quite a late apex because it's a long corner and it gets tighter on the way out. So you cannot really push too much through the corner and use the runoff and the curves, because actually you cannot really use them much, or at least not as much as you would like. So yeah, we need to make sure we are going wide on the entry, so then it allows us to carry a bit more speed, and then we can take the late apex and just open the steering a bit earlier, as in if we were just going earlier into the corner. So the fact that we take a late apex means we can open the steering up to third, making sure I use everything I can to stay within the limit. Obviously, keep the left wheels on the white line. If you do more than that, you are going to get an off track. And now we are going into the Mercedes arena. So once you are right there, you need to start to turn to the left, get out of the curbing. And as soon as I'm going out of the curbing, then I need to go on the brake. Down to second, I stay with second. I need to make sure I don't push too much on the brakes. So yeah, not pushing too much on the brakes, not braking too much at the same time, and need to make sure I keep the balance. It's very important going into this slow corner. And as you will see, and this time I might switch to a chase camera, I'm just trying to make sure I use as much cab as I can, especially on the exit. I'm putting the right wheels close to the white line, especially in the second part of the exit, because I want to make sure I get the best momentum possible out of this right one. So in order to get that good exit, I try to make sure I get a tight exit out of this left one, so then I can have a great angle of attack for the next corner. So I'm going quite slow mid corner, so then I can just take my tight exit, and once it's done, then I can just use the power to get the rotation on the way out with second gear, and then I just lift a tiny bit, no need to brake, just lift a bit, and once I'm out of the curbing, then I can just open the steering, use all of the track on the way out. So that's pretty much how you have to do this sector. So for this right one, just make sure you keep the left wheels, obviously. I wouldn't say on the white line because it might be a bit too close to the off track, but if you can like keep the left wheels, what, like maybe one half of the left wheels on the racetrack and the white line, it could be the best in terms of track limits. So yeah, that's what I would advise, but make sure you're not being too greedy, I would say. That's what I'm gonna say for this right one, because it's really easy to get caught with an off track. And same for the exit, just make sure you're not going too wide, because obviously it's also really easy to pick up an off track. But yeah, as soon as you are not going massively wide and you stay, maybe like you keep like a car or half a car to the white line, it should be fine. But it's tough to really give a track limit there, because I'm not even sure if they are saying anything in terms of track limits. No, they don't. So maybe one thing that can be a track limit is like if you draw a line which goes after that run of paint, I would say. Like if you draw a straight line, maybe this could be the limit, but it looks like it's a bit wide as well. So just make sure you're not going too far wide. Keep like alpha car to the white line to the right, and it should be all fine. So yeah, now we are going into the GP. Instead of going to the sprint layout, we are going to the GP. Braking reference for the GP is for me is the exit road, the not the exit road, but the outside of the sprint layout. You have this white line which draw the outside of the sprint layout, and this is what I'm using. Basically, as soon as I'm next to it, I'm just gonna go on the brake. So just diving on the brake, as you can see, I'm not using that much braking, just about 54%, but it's quite a fast corner. The only thing there is that you need to make sure you keep the brakes for a little longer because you don't want to end up going too wide on the exit, as then you have the right-hander which comes really uh, close or fast after that. So you need to make sure you can also have a good entry speed for the next one. So not arriving completely to the inside is a good point. So yeah, once I'm into the corner next to the curb, really facing the exit, then I can go on power. But as I said, making sure I'm not pushing too much because I don't want to put the car um, too far to the right. There we are in a good position. The car is a bit more, it's a bit closer to the center of the track, so we're good. And then once I'm alongside the beginning of the curb on the right, then I'm just gonna go on the brake. So on the brake, down to second, diving into the corner, raising the brakes, and once I'm in the middle of the corner, I'm just gonna go on power, trying to make sure I'm not going too quickly, full power to not get oversteer. But at the same time, I need to make sure I have the right amount of aggressiveness, so then I can get the rotation, get the momentum, and once I'm facing the exit of the corner, I can just open the steering, go fully flat, use all of the track, making sure I'm not taking gravel on the left. And now we are going into the hairpin. So we're gonna stay with fourth gear. I was wondering if we were putting fifth, but no, we stay with fourth gear. For the hairpin, once again, it's quite easy references all the time. I'm just using, we have a bit of grass between the exit road on the left, even if it's not really an exit road, but it's some runoff. And then you have this sort of curb, which, yeah, I don't know if it's supposed to be a curb, but we'll call this a curb. So basically, just between the grass and the curb, we're just gonna go on the brake. That's what I'm using. I'm putting the car on the curb, I brake on the curb, and then I just bring the car into the corner. As you can see, it's quite deep on the brakes, but once again, now we have a different kind of deep, because deep 2 seasons ago were almost like 100%, and now obviously it's a lot less considering how the tires are working now. So yeah, just around 70% braking. And as I said, during the hot lap, I'm just gonna keep the brakes for quite long because it's yeah, it's quite slow. It's quite a slow corner. And at the same time, you really wanna get to apex there, because the idea out of this one is to make sure you can get the best traction possible. So I prefer, instead of staying all the way tight, which can maybe make me lose as well a bit of time, and staying a bit tight all the way means that you need to put more steering angle all the way at the same time, and you might end up with also more steering angle on the exit. So by going a bit wide mid corner means that I can just carry the speed on the entry. Then mid corner, I'm gonna put most out of the most out of the steering angle. But then when I will face the exit, I will be able to open the steering. As you can see, steering is open now. It's really quite open. It looks like it's still a lot, but actually, once you reach this kind of angle, it's really not that much. And then exit, steering is almost fully open, and you can really push on power. But if you stay all the way on the inside, you are going to put the same steering angle all the way, and you will miss a bit of rotation because you won't be able to go on power that much, and stuff I said earlier. So yeah, to me the best is to take a first apex there. So now I'm releasing the brakes. I bring the car sort of mid corner, but as you can see, I'm not even close to mid corner. Really, I'm still in the first half of the track. And then I just go back on power in the middle of the corner. I use the power to get that rotation, get the momentum on the way out. And once I'm taking the second apex, now I can open the steering. I can use the track on the exit. And now we are going to climb the DSs, putting the car on the curb on the right, leaving the curb halfway on onto the curb. So pretty much in the middle of the curbing. I'm just gonna leave the curb, and once I'm leaving that curb, I'm just gonna lift a tiny bit, as you can see, off the curb. Now I'm lifting, and basically close to the curb, I'm just gonna go full power. So I'm just lifting, if big picture, I'm just lifting between the both curbs. Once I'm lifting this curb, I'm lifting, and then right before I'm going back on that curb, I'm going back on power. So for like 4 meters maybe between the two curbs, the two side of the track, I'm lifting, and that's pretty much about it. I would say. So it's not really complicated. Obviously, it's a quick corner, but yeah, it's not that hard actually. Just need to make sure you are lifting at the right moment. So as I said, leaving the curb, lifting just before going on the curb, back on power. So that's it's simple as that. So leaving the curb, fourth gear, now back on power, using the curb, and from there, just make sure you're not going too wide, obviously. So yeah, if you feel that you are going a bit wide, and the slowdown is a bit harsh there, to be honest. So make sure that you don't put the wheel on the gravel. That's very important. Otherwise, you get punished quite heavily. So yeah, just be careful with that. I'm putting some, but it when you do this, it feels like you're not putting um any part of the wheel on in the gravel. But if you really put the like all of the wheels, all of the right wheels on the gravel, you're gonna get it. But yeah, just like that, it's okay. But if you are really cutting a bit too much, even if it doesn't feel like it, it's going to be a full second slowdown, or 1.5 second slowdown. But we know how it works with iRacing. Um, 1.5 second feels like 5 seconds. So yeah, just be careful with that. Really, that's very important. Out of this, those S's, just trying to make sure I'm basically not losing too much time on the way out. And now we are approaching this left and right. So for this one, I'm just gonna brake before the 100. So you have the first 100 just right there. I don't know why there is two different 100s, but basically, if this was 150, we would brake at the 125, between the two, between both 100s. So yeah, it would be a 125, somewhere around there. So just between the two 200s, we're gonna go on the brake. You can use quite a bit of runoff on the right, but just make sure you're not running too much, because this can be an off track as well. So keep the car just in the middle. I think it's the best way to do, because if you are using a bit more, and at the end of the day, it's not going to make you gain a lot of time. Apart from opening a bit better the corner, it's not going to change anything. To be fair, the few centimeters you're going to gain to the right will be just pointless, in my opinion. It's just it would be annoying to get an off track just for that, because it's not going to make you gain anything. So just make sure you keep the car in the middle of that line, and then, as I said, braking at the between the 200s boards, and yeah, braking around 70% once again. And the closer I'm going into the corner, the more I'm going to release the brakes to get the rotation. Pretty much like it was the down a left-hander, you need to keep a bit of brake, so you need to keep the brakes a bit longer going into the corner, because this right-hander, this one is quite close, and you need to quickly bring the car to the left, on the left-hand side. So if you are carrying too much speed into the corner and on the exit, you will just struggle to bring the car to the left. And the thing is that you have the massive straight after this right one. So if you are compromising the entry of the right one, you are not only going to compromise the right one, but you are also going to compromise the massive straight just before the chicane. So yeah, just make sure to keep in mind to not go too wide going out of this left one, because you're not only going to compromise the right one, but also the straight line. So you keep the brakes a bit longer, so then you can make sure you are able to quickly bring the car to the left. So as you can see, I'm not that close to the curb on the right, so I can bring easily the car to the left before diving into this right-hander and prepare the straight. So we third gear on the brakes, and as soon as I'm on the very, basically I almost keep the brakes all the way on this curbing. So once I'm leaving the curb, I just go on power with third gear, not fully on power until I'm really reaching the left hand side of the left side of the track. And once the car is on the left, I'm just going to leave the throttle, go on the brake. I'm not braking that much. It's just about putting the car into the right spot, I would say, and get enough rotation. And once I'm into the corner on the apex, then I can just go on power, use the rotation of the car, use also the elevation, which helps actually to get the rotation, opening the steering, using all of the track on the outside, and now we are going fast forward into the straight. So you can cut the right one. I don't think it's faster actually, but it's not slower, so it's up to you. Decided to do it during the lap, but it's not necessary really. At least you're not losing time if you are driving around. But anyway, now we are approaching the fast chicane, not the slow chicane. So quite easy. Braking around the 50, just a bit before. Back in the days, I would brake next to it. Now we need to brake a bit before, so it would be maybe 60, 55, 60. So it's a bit before the 50. On the brakes, just dropping a single gear. You don't need to drop like to third or second. Just say high gears through this corner because it's going to keep help to keep the momentum. And yeah, ideally you want to keep as much speed as you can through the chicane. Dropping a gear lower obviously makes the corner easier, but you are just compromising too much of the speed through the chicane. So in my opinion, it's just better to maybe work a bit more on the brakes and make sure you are spot on the entry speed than just dropping a gear. Use I would say the easy option, drop the gear and yeah, then just push flat out to gain back the time you've lost by the gear you dropped. So in my opinion, the best way to do it is just to drop a single gear instead of dropping two or one. It depends of the car. But yeah, usually it's better to stay higher on the gears through the chicane. So once I'm just before the 50, I just go on the brakes around 70%, and once I'm really going into the chicane, I'm just releasing the brakes. As you can see, you need to really play around with the track limits. So yeah, if I go far chase, I'm just using the edge, like the you see the border, like the curbing around the border. I'm just using all of it, but I guess if you use more than that, it's gonna be an off track. So just make sure you're not using too much. And then I guess it's quite the same for the second part. You need to make sure you're not cutting too much to the inside. The good thing is that actually going deep on the inside on the way out actually helps the car to get a bit of rotation on power. So if you are going a bit wider, you might struggle a bit to get out of the chicane tight. So yeah, you have to make sure you're cutting, but at the same time, not too much because then you can get an off track. But yeah, if you keep it clean and you keep the left wheels like close to the white line, um, it should be just about fine, I would say. Once again, we don't really know exactly the track limits, so it's a bit difficult. But all I can say is that surely if you are putting the left wheels too close, or almost on the curbing, you are going to get an off track. And just right there, obviously, we have the reference of this curbing, so we pretty much know that keeping the left wheels on it is fine. Then for that part, I would say that yeah, keep the left wheels as close as you can from the white line. Obviously, it looks like on that lap I'm just keeping the rear left on the white line. So yeah, I would say that stay close to the white line. And then yeah, you just as soon as you are off the chicane, you just go fully flat, use the curbing on the left, and just around the tire marks on the track. I know this is a terrible reference because depending of the conditions, it might be a bit more difficult to see. But yeah, it's still sim racing, so sometimes you have to use whatever you have around you. And yeah, this is what I'm using. So near the tire marks, I'm just gonna go on the brakes, braking quite deep, but not that much actually. We are just about 60%. carrying a lot of speed through the corner, but making sure I'm not carrying too much speed at the same time, because it's really easy to pick up some understeer and end up going wide. So yeah, this time you have to go quite deep on the brakes, but at the same time on the entry, but not too much, because you don't want to get understeer on the entry. And then the idea is to make sure you can keep slowing down the car for a bit with the bit of braking you can see. And once the car is settled on the inside, it should not go wide anymore. So then you can apply power, try to make sure you're not going too quick, too hard on the throttle, but at the same time, as I said, when the car is settled on the inside into this corner, usually it's rarely going to get loose or anything. The car should be quite settled going out and in this corner. So yeah, once you're on the inside, just make sure you're not going too wide on the exit. Open the steering, put it flat. Just make sure you're not clipping the gravel on the exit. And now we're gonna go up to fourth just before the line, and we are done for the lap on the Nurburgring. Alright, everyone, so we're done for today. That was the week 2 lap guide of the Sports Car Challenge by Falcon Tire around the Nurburgring GP with the Mercedes AMG GT4. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the Coach Dev Academy channel and join the Discord server if you have any questions about the work we are making. And I see you next week for the third week of the season. See you next time. Bye bye.